Hey guys, welcome back to the Bro and Pro podcast, where we hope to help you reach your full potential, whether that be inside or outside the gym. I'm your main host, Jeremy self-proclaimed gym bro, and I'm joined with a very special guest. He's running Australia's leading comp prep team. He is also a successful bodybuilder in the IFBB Pro League, one of the best federations in the world. And welcome to the podcast, Tim Mckinnon.
Thanks, bro. I'm blushing. That was thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Really keen to just have a chat with a fellow gym bro.
Yes, fellow gym bro. Yeah. Now I'll say you're definitely a pro coach, not a gym bro. Sure. I'll take the title of gym bro. Okay, so you are the pro coach.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Sweet, man. So why don't you give the listeners a little bit of a rundown of who you are and what you do, and yeah.
All right. Well, like exactly as you said, man, like I'm a bodybuilder at heart. You know, we were just talking about this briefly before. I like everyone who gets into bodybuilding, you just go to the gym to see what that's about, and fell in love with that. You know, just seeing the progress, I suppose, in your physique. It's addicting. You know, when you put the effort in, it's one of the only things where you can get direct result. As a, you know, you put the effort in, you see the result, and you wear it around. You know, pretty much everything else I've done, be it university or school or any other skills that I've learned, it's hard to sort of see that tangible result. You know, you might get a certificate or you might get a job or something, but it's never really as fulfilling as like having a muscle grow. You know, that feeling is very, very it's addicting. It's almost like a drug, you know. And so just that process, I fell in love with that, almost like in a like a non-healthy way, like an addiction type approach to the whole sport. And I kind of got very big very young, did a lot of shows very young, without any sort of guidance or anything like that. I just kind of learned and trial, and that's the process that I like, is just learning something, trying it, seeing if it works, adapting as a result of what you see, that you can physically see the result, if it worked or not. Logging everything and just being really pedantic with certain details, as far as tracking your sleep and like this, everything you can think. I always like a biohacker, like looking at all that stuff. And then obviously, you start going down the competitive route, and you kind of get sidetracked because the reasons why you started doing the bodybuilding thing in the first place kind of goes to the competitive side, and then you start getting judged, and your worth as a human being gets questioned, like, you know what I mean? Yep. Like it sort of changes from a passion to this, I need to prove myself thing. Especially as a young guy in the industry, you're new to it. These are new people. You want to prove that you're worth being here. It's like, I think I don't know if it's a male thing or just a young guy thing. It's one of those things where you want to prove yourself,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just sort of, I did 28 shows, man. Like I've done since I was 19, I've done 28 shows. I'm 32 now. And I was a PT. That was my first job. I've never had any other jobs. I think I worked in a daycare center when I was 18 or 17 or something. But other than that, I've been a coach, a PT. And I finished uni, and I never used any of that stuff. I just went straight back to PT. And
what did you study at uni? Sorry,
I did 2 years of engineering, 18 months of engineering, and then I moved into business degree. Okay, and I basically just graduated as a bachelor of marketing.
Yeah.
Which we pretty much never use any of that stuff because of social media. Like none of the traditional marketing tactics we really use at all anymore. It's all like instantaneous, attention stuff. It's not really, your whole, like there is elements that I still think about with brand and developing, how people see you and things like that. That does help me still. But a lot of it's still just, customer service and client relationships and things like that. So it's not really stuff we learned at uni. So I won't totally say it didn't help me, but it's definitely not really like, been the platform for anything. And then from uni, man, I basically just put all my effort into competing, because I at that point I was one of those guys that carried my lunchbox around the uni and like sat in the corner and ate my rice, and I was overly obsessed with that, with getting as big as possible. And I knew that for me to go down that track, I needed a job that supported that. I couldn't really work in an office with a suit and tie and do those hours and things. I needed something that would allow me to eat and train and do all that stuff. So continuing PT just made sense.
Yeah.
And by that point too, I was actually learning how to talk to people. Like when you're a young guy, you don't really know how to talk to people, especially 50-year-old women who work in the office and they're coming to you for PT. You don't really know how to form that relationship. So you're developing all these skills and you're kind of figuring out who you are at the same time. And so PT just made sense. It was something I enjoyed, and it allowed me to follow my passion, which was competing. Yeah, and then man, like I had this sort of like epiphany one day where I was training someone, and I just thought to myself, like the level of results someone gets when you're in the gym with them for an hour is limited by the fact that they then go home and they have alcohol and they go out on the weekend and they do all this stuff in between these sessions. And it's like if I could control what you do between A and B, we would see far more results. And the clients that I had in the gym who would sort of do the effort in between our PT sessions were the ones that were getting amazing results. It wasn't what I was doing with them in the gym. It was what they were doing in between that. So that's what formulated the whole online coaching thing for me, was because I was sick of spending my time with people who just weren't getting anywhere, because they were going, and I was just a physique maintainer. I wasn't a transformation specialist or anything. This is maintaining someone's physique so they can go and drink on the weekend. That's kind of what it felt like. And
it was like a transaction. Sorry. It was like a transaction. Yeah. It was just like go in, train them and then see you later. That's it. Like end of service.
Right. Yeah. And because you're a passionate bodybuilder, and you kind of like, you don't expect everyone to be on the same level as you in terms of what you're willing to sacrifice, but you still have that mentality because you're like, I'm at this point with what I'm trying to achieve, and these guys don't give a shit. So why would I spend my time, even if I'm making money out of it? It doesn't align. It doesn't align with me, So that's where the online coaching thing started, because again, it allowed me more free time to be a bodybuilder. Like I didn't have to be in the gym anymore.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I took a massive risk with that. That was way back in like 2016, I think, like way back, it doesn't sound, it was actually only like 7 years ago, but that was before Instagram was big and everything.
Yeah.
It was still when posting a selfie was strange.
Yeah. And then your friends would judge you and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, are you like self-absorbed? And you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I just won't post.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you delete it because it doesn't get many likes or something, So yeah, it's always just I've always kind of just fumbled my way through it. I've never really had a plan. But that's where this brand comes from, is because I finally get to a point, I think through COVID, that taught me a lot about myself. I had a lot of time. I'm sure we all had a lot of time to think, about what we were doing. Obviously, like a lot of my business took a hit during that time, and the closing of the gyms and everything. Like you question everything you're doing, and I think that period of time really told me what I wanted. Which it doesn't mean that like we were discussing before. It's like it doesn't mean I'm not a bodybuilder anymore. It just where I was heading, I didn't feel like I had a plan, and it didn't feel like it aligned with my values or anything like that. It just felt like I was just kind of like doing it because it was there. Like it was easy. It was like I was getting clients, like they would just message me, and like there was no like structure or strategy you know what I mean? It started to become more like that PT time. It just didn't feel right. And so that's when I had the idea of just, giving the bodybuilding a little bit of a rest for me personally, and focusing on coaching 100%, and just seeing like having a structured business set up, like the whole, back end of things organized, and really prioritizing the quality of athletes I'm working with, and the quality of results, and actually, giving a shit about the results rather than just seeing it as an income source, so having that change mentally, I think, and then the business set up and the brand and everything, and just putting 100% of the energy that I would put into myself, into my clients. That's kind of where it's gone. And it's still going that way because of, I'm far more passionate about bodybuilding now than I've ever been, because of the position I'm in, and also just the experience I've had. I guess because I've had this sort of like weird non-structured career, I understand the importance of structure and career planning rather than just saying, oh, we'll do a show. It's like, making sure everything's aligned with this person, where they're at development wise and mentally and everything. The timing of your show is so important, where you're at as a person. Because, you see these people, like you might see it on Instagram and stuff, but you see these people that compete and it just looks effortless. Like it is just, they're just like, it's like, does this person even feel the deficit? And then you get up. I get goosebumps talking about this stuff, man, because it's so true. Like when you're on top of your game and the timing's perfect, it is effortless. It is the easiest thing you'll ever do. It's still difficult. So is but it's still the difficulty makes sense to you, and it's no longer this pain. It's the same as any other task in your day. You just do it, and it's you literally feel like it's smooth sailing. It's easy.
Yeah.
So
would you say that the experience of a athlete matters? So like in regards to what you were mentioning about, how it feels effortless.
Yeah. Not really, because I have some first timers this season who are like that, who act professional, who never miss a beat with communication, and they're just on the ball. And that comes down to our preparation before the prep as well, like our off season and they structure everything. Definitely, like, they put the effort in to get to that point, sure, mentally, but they're still, this is still their first show. This is still new. They don't know what's coming. They have no idea what to expect the next week or the week after that. I know exactly what's coming. I have it all planned. I know how they feel. I know what's coming, but they don't. This is the first time they've ever done this, and they're still doing it effortlessly. So I don't think it's an experience thing, because I have some athletes who have been bodybuilding for decades, and they still can't get to that point. So I think it really comes down to it aligning with the timing of everything in your life, and just being in a position where you're accepting what you're going through. It's a choice, and the reason for doing it is absolutely like perfect. It doesn't have anything out of line. Like you've really made sure that that's exactly what you want to do, regardless of the outcome. That's what you're doing. And so, I definitely failed at that a lot in my 28 shows, so you can still enjoy prep and it not be the right timing, but when it's the right timing, man, like even your body looks better. It's crazy.
Yes.
And you can see these people coming from a mile away. You're like, that person's going to win.
Yeah, like they just do the work. Like the intensity of training is high. They keep everything consistent. They don't find variations. They just keep on top of everything, keep consistent with their routine, and then it's just effortless. It's really just easy. And now I understand what you mean by effortless, because I was thinking, okay, so it doesn't matter if it's the experience, like, because obviously getting brain dead and brain fog, how it feels like, and it's the worst feeling in the world, especially if someone is a first timer. Like they're gonna be like, what am I feeling? Like, holy shit,
And it's also like when I was talking about before, being coached by the right person. I think when you align with your coach and your values match, right? Your coach understands you, and they know you as a person, and they know the level to push you to. They know where your limit is. Like they understand that psychological level and the physical level. They can push you to that level, and they can keep you from going past that. Whereas if they don't know you very well, they're going to misjudge that easily, and that's going to throw the whole thing off, because it is a matter of balancing, and that's why I call it like a stress quota. Like it's like you've got stress from all these different sources, and your genetic body, your physical body has a quota. Same with your mindset. It's like a quota of stress that you can cope with before you lose it, and if something is maybe physical, emotional, like any of those elements are forcing that quota above what your balance limit is, then your ability to manage all of those things completely unravels. It doesn't matter whether you are experienced or whether you're ahead of the game. Like it might be you get sick, or you injure yourself, or you just completely lose it and break up with your partner or whatever. One of those areas will unravel if you're blowing the quota, so that comes down to, and this is something like, I mean, it's quite deep. Like this is me as a coach. Like I overanalyze things, but I think, that's the part that I've experienced as an athlete, that I'm like, okay, this is what I can do as a coach now, because, I've been there and I've been misunderstood as an athlete. On the outside, I might look like I got all my shit together, but if you truly know me as a person, you'd be like, this guy's about to fall in a heap,
Yeah.
and we got to do something. We got to take a week off. We got to deload. We got to increase the food a little bit or something right now. It doesn't matter about the prep and getting ready and being lean enough. He's going to unravel. And if he unravels, we're not going to get in shape anyway. So, all of those elements, I think, is what I'm passionate about as a coach, and just in bodybuilding in general, and that's something that I don't think you can, I don't think you can really ever get to that point unless you're just shown, you have to be shown that.
Yeah. And I think, it's important that, it's crazy because, that no matter how much knowledge the experience you get from obviously doing it yourself and then also coaching people, you really learn about individual preferences and mindsets that really dictates them from each other, which is amazing. Yeah.
I've got some clients, man, that like, well, I don't say clients, I say athletes now, because they are. But I have some athletes that I like overanalyze. I've got tracking sheets that, if they lose a hair, we record it, like it's overdone tracking because they need that keeps them accountable. And then I've got some who we just don't even talk about anything. Like it's just, are you feeling good?
Yeah.
Because if we track stuff, they'd lose it, So you've got completely different, but on stage, they're just as competitive as each other because of the work ethic. So, you can't apply the same process to anyone and expect the same result. Because it really is it's a genetic thing, but it's also a mental thing. And when you combine those two things together and you don't have the right timing and the right approach, you can look way off. You can have all the potential in the world and just have the shittest experience and never do it again. And you've missed your shot, and that's the worst outcome.
Yeah, 100%. So so there was a lot there. Thank you for talking about your business and everything like that. It definitely two words that come to mind, especially with your how you've gotten to where you are now, and it's natural progression. And I think this natural progression was naturally just started just from this choice of, this is what I want to do. Like you competed, you did 28 shows. I mean, people are freaking out about doing their first show and not winning their pro card, but you probably get this still, I'm sure.
Yeah, man, and I hope I can do another 28. Like I absolutely love it. So, but that's the thing, is like, doing it for experience because you love doing it. That's the first step. You love doing it. Yeah. That's it.
And from your journey, when you started competing, you finished uni, the skills you developed from obviously the knowledge you gained from marketing is probably helping you a little bit now, even just slightly, even as just the knowledge you gained, even from your competing has now improved, obviously taking you to that next top tier coach and one of the best coaches in Australia. Now also having coaches work under you. And I think what you developed was this sort of purpose and impact. You focus on your purpose now. You found your purpose during COVID, and then now you're having all this impact on Australian competitors in general.
Absolutely, man. That's a good way to put it. Purpose, for sure, because you sometimes you sit there and you go, what is the point of any of this? I'm getting on stage, I'm not winning. Like, why am I continually doing this? Do I enjoy it? I don't know anymore. So yeah, once you find that purpose, you just got to go hard. You just got to give it everything.
Yeah, 100%.
All or nothing.
The all or nothing. That's it, and that's how you created the name 1%ers, right?
That's right, bro. That's literally that's the reason. Yep.
And so, give us a little bit of insight. What do 1%ers do? Yeah, if you can.
Yeah. So 1%ers, man, it's like this is the thing. A lot of people think about the bikies, the outlaws, the that sort of like crime world, I suppose. But it really, I mean, you could relate it to that in a sense. Like it's a small minority of the population, and I suppose in that sense, I'm relating it to fitness and bodybuilding, because there is a small minority of the bodybuilding, population who do everything that is required of them for their individual goal. you can be a bodybuilder and you can compete, but you're not nailing all of those little tiny details. And we spoke about like the difference between, someone being like super tracked with their stuff or someone being super loose. It's still about the 1%ers. Like if this person doesn't track everything perfectly, they're still doing what they need to do perfectly. Like they're looking into their process and their routine and nailing those things. And there's only 1% of the people that get on stage that actually do that. And so that's where, I suppose as someone who's failed at that before, I'm pushing myself to be a coach to make sure that my athletes or the team and the coaches that work for me, we're focusing on addressing those issues and bringing through, a population of athletes that are, 1%ers, like focusing on those little details, making sure that it aligns with you and that you're leaving no stone unturned. If there's a stone unturned, you have no way of determining whether the feedback you're given and the result you were given on stage is worth pursuing or to change something because you didn't give it 100%. You left a couple of things off the table and you don't know if you gave it 100%, would you have placed different? So we can't progress from there. There's nothing to progress on other than to say, next time give it 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's doing everything you need to do at 100%. And then from there, you're able to analyze the what's happening and whether it's working, and being okay with it not working. If you give 100% and it still doesn't work, that's what 1%ers do. They don't care that it didn't work. It's a process of elimination, and finding what does work and continuing to show up and give that effort regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
So it's deep.
It's very deep. No, it definitely has been. When you brought up the bikies and how it's the 1%ers, it definitely gave me that feel. And I think that's personally what you've done as a brand. You've done that really well. And I'm thinking about, like, actually, wait, you did do that because I don't know if there is. I'm pretty sure there is a bikie gang in the world somewhere called something. I don't know. Is there?
I don't think it's a gang. I think it's just like I think it's just all themselves. Yeah, it's like they're the 1%. It's not actually 1%. I think it's just 1%. But I'm not trying to take that away. I'm just trying to explain the type of people that we are as athletes. And that's 1% of the athletes that you see, because the people that really succeed and the people that continue to succeed, they're the 1%ers.
Yeah, 100%. And even with that, like, so when you have clients, do you filter them through and find out if they're the right fit for you guys, for you?
Yeah, 100%, man. Like, especially now, and that's kind of with the business structure, the fact that I've got multiple coaches, that filtration process is a little bit more in depth now, because obviously, like, I want to work with a higher tier athlete. And as a result of that, I'm limiting my time. I don't want to have 300 clients to work with, because I won't have time to work with the people that really need my attention. So the idea behind having a tiered system of coaching is so that if you're a very beginner, you are coached in the way that you should be coached. Because like I was saying before, if I coach someone who's just starting with the intention that I give someone who's at the highest level, it's not going to work. There's so much room for them to move before they need to really be. So you're still a 1%er because you're nailing what you should be doing for you right now, but you still got progression. And so if I'm giving all the attention to them, then I can't give it to the people that really need it at the top, so that's the filtration process. So it's still like if I did like a consult call and that person hasn't competed before, and they don't really know much about competing, they just want to get into it, you could say that they're not a 1%er. You could say that. But if the intention is right and they have that willingness to sort of adopt those habits and learn and really put the effort in, I would consider them a 1%er in the making. You know what I mean? So there's still room for them on the team under the right coach. So it doesn't mean that you can't be a 1%er if you're not a pro athlete. It just means that your intention and your values align with that concept of no stone unturned, all or nothing. And that applies to, do you get out of bed and make your bed? Do you do your stretches? Like, how you do everything is how you do anything is how you do everything. You know, so it doesn't matter whether you are just sitting on the couch, you know, are you really relaxing and really enjoying that relaxation, or are you kind of on your phone, kind of relaxing, kind of not, you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to be really focused on the task. And that's the type of people we like to work with, regardless of, you know, skill level or experience or anything like that.
No, it definitely sounds like it's like almost a tiered leveling system that you have that, like, it's like, you know, yeah, you're still 1%er, but you're still at the beginger level. Like, we're still implementing the right changes in your life to kind of get you prepared to be a top 1%er.
Yeah.
That sounded
And
like,
it's kind of like, it's the same thing. You know, you could be a lifestyle athlete. You could be someone who just wants to look good at Ibiza or something. You know, like you might just want to look amazing for your wedding. You're still a 1%er. You're still a 1%er. If you go about that process as a 1%er, it doesn't matter if you have a few drinks at your wedding. You've gone about that process as a 1%er. That's what the point is. Yeah.
no, I love that, man. And so what kind of made you decide? Obviously, this is probably why the decision you made to create a team of coaches, because you couldn't work with everyone. Is that a reason?
Yeah, exactly, man. You know, like, obviously there's a smaller percentage as you get higher in skill level and experience. There's obviously a smaller percentage of your athlete team that's going to be at that point. And so, you know, as an athlete team grows, my needs are needed over here. You know, like there's obviously going to be, you know, a smaller percentage, but as the overall team grows, that percentage grows. So I'm still as busy as I was, but that level of athlete that I work with now is higher than it was. So
okay.
I can't sort of stretch myself thin, take on everyone that wants to get to that level. There's a tiered process now with, you know, coaches who meet that experience level for you to then step it up and go through the ranks kind of thing. So it really just depends on, and it also depends on the personality too. You know, you might have a better interaction and personality relationship with a different coach. And so I recommend you to this coach or this coach because, you know, that particular person would get better results from you because they work better with this type of person. So there's a lot involved in that process, but it still comes back to, you know, the fact that I don't want to, if I'm working with pro athletes, I don't want to have to, you know, not give the best quality service because I've got 300 people to work with. You know, that completely defeats the point, you know? So that's why, because otherwise you burn out. You burn out as a coach. You know, you can't sustain that level of service forever. It doesn't work. So it's kind of like a safeguard almost, but also a quality control thing.
Yeah, so you can provide the best service and quality to your clients, which is super
Yeah,
important.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So sweet, man. So do you see anything wrong with the coaching industry at the moment? I saw you smile there. I was like, okay, well, there must be. You've thought about this question, haven't you?
Yeah. Look, I think it's improving, man. Like, I don't think it's like a general issue. I don't think that like I wouldn't be able to put it like a blanket thing. I wouldn't be able to say this is the problem. I think we have a long way to go. I think we're a fair ways behind the rest of the world. Like I was saying before, I think it's a quality control issue. I don't think that every person in the industry gets the best quality service they could. That's the issue for me. It's like saying, you know, it's like if you go to a restaurant that you like and you have the same meal every day and it's the best, and you go back there for that same meal and you know it's going to be good, and then you go back and it's shit.
Yeah.
You know, that's quality control, right? Like, you're ensuring your service is consistent. And I think for me, that's one of, it doesn't mean that everyone else has to agree with me, but that's one of my values, is consistency of service, because it's something I experienced in my time as an athlete. You know, you join with this coach because they're getting amazing results, and then they'd ignore you or something, and they don't reply to you or something, and it's not consistent. So, pardon me. So I think, like, I don't think it's an issue. I just think that it's bound to happen in an industry that's evolving. And I think that, you know, in time that's going to be more consistent. I think that the quality of coaching is going to be more broad. I think, you know, like you're seeing overseas, I think there's going to be more and more good coaches. And so it's not going to be a matter of whether this coach is good or this coach is good or whether the service is consistent. I think it's going to come down to purely who you work best with And it's going to come down to that like relationship and that understanding, like you would with if you were to see a psychologist or something. It's the same thing. It's like, you know, we don't have an exam for a psychologist to sit for us to go, are they good for us or not?
Yeah.
We have to work with them first, but they still have to be a qualified psychologist. You know, there's a quality control thing there. So I think that's the issue in our industry. There is no quality control. There is no like exam to sit. You know, we're assuming, especially with people who are new to everything, if it says best coach or Australia's like, you know, best coach, you're assuming that is true.
Yeah.
You know, and how do you know that it's not? Like the results are great, everything's great. Why would you think otherwise? So it's not an issue. I think it's just something that will improve over time. I mean, it is an issue for the athletes. You know, if you have you know, a consistent result with certain type of athlete, and then it comes back to genetics, you know, and genetics and work ethic. Like if you shoot enough arrows, you're gonna hit the target at some point. So that, for me, it really is just that my experience as an athlete, also as a coach, you know, if you're consistent with your results and the work that you're creating and you know, I suppose the client experience and all that sort of stuff, then you have that to go off. And the overall sort of I guess for the overall industry to grow and develop and for things to get better, that needs to be more common. I think it just needs to be more consistent and better quality control.
I think that's very super important what you said there. I think a lot of people listening are probably going to be coaches as well. So I think they're going to take something out of the note and write this down. Consistency and quality is an important part. And I think people like yourself who've created such a great team, people are going to follow suit. You're like almost like a pioneer in the industry that sets the standards. So then that way, when people look at that, they're like, we need to provide a service like that, you know, which is a great thing to have. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. And I think also, you know, with bodybuilding, it's one of those things. It's not like you know, if you sit an exam, you either pass the exam or you don't. You know, it's very obvious what the outcome is. Whereas with bodybuilding, because it's subjective, you've got this physical standard, like it's a criteria. You know, you've got to look a certain way, but you've also got this work ethic criteria where it's months and years of effort. So how much of that is coaching input and how much of that is just the ability of the person? Because if you have the right parents and you have the right genetics and you have the right reason to compete and you have, you know, all of that stuff, like I was saying before, if it aligns and it's the right reasons, you could pretty much do anything and you're going to look good.
Yeah.
Like
I've seen people like that. I've seen clients like that. Yeah. They're just like, you just look at them and I'm like, I didn't do much. Like literally they didn't know for like, yeah.
That's right. And so unfortunately for I guess the newbies or, you know, even experienced people in the industry who don't necessarily have that stuff aligning, you know, it doesn't mean that you can't win big shows with bad genetics. Like I've seen that happen. Like it doesn't necessarily, I've seen people outwork bad genetics. I wouldn't sort of give up if you have shit genetics. What I'm saying is when all of those things align and it just falls into place, the coach's involvement is very minimal. You know, it's not really a good example of the coach's ability. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about quality control, because, you know, and obviously as you get better as a coach, you get exposed to better athletes. And so your results are going to be better because they're better. You know, it's just, that's the process. So yes, you get better as a coach because you're more experienced, but you also get exposed to better athletes. And so because you're getting exposed to better athletes, what you can actually achieve together is far greater and more impressive. So that's the quality control issue where if you're, I suppose, new to it, you're expecting that to happen to you because you've seen that over and over and over and over. You know what I mean? So it's a tough one to sort of explain, especially to new people, that it's going to take them 3 years to look the same as that, you know, when they've signed up with you and they're expecting to look like that in 20 weeks. But it's something that I hope to do as a coach, you know, as we expand the team and focus more on education. And, you know, we've got a couple of projects that we're working on where it's like a course and a lot of information and education around that. I think the goal of what I'm trying to do is to really expose all of that stuff, and teach you. The goal would be to have everyone able to coach themselves if they want to, where to the point where you don't need a coach. But if you want to level up, like I would need a coach if I was to do my best. You know,
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. I don't need a coach. I know how to coach myself. But if I want to win this show, I hire a coach to do it. That would be the ideal situation for the entire industry. And once that's in place, once everyone has that understanding, once that base level of education is up to that standard, you won't have an issue with quality control because they know how to do what they need to do. They're just hiring someone to put them on stage in the best possible condition, because you shouldn't coach yourself to do that. That's not like it makes no sense for you to do that yourself. So that's kind of my mission as well on the side, is to sort of produce a standard of athlete before the coaching even begins.
Amazing. And that comes down with knowledge, like giving them the knowledge they need to actually process it and then apply it and then actually truly understand what's happening. Because then the coaching process is a lot easier for coaches, because it's like they know exactly what they need to tell you. They're going to tell you stuff that you don't need to know, like, you know, like some random stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that sounds.
The worst thing, man, the worst thing, I'm sure you've had this before, is as an athlete, right?
Yeah.
The worst thing is when your coach tells you some shit that you don't need them to tell you. Like, you're just like, dude, I know. Shut up. Just stop talking. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? You just want them to coach you. You don't need a lesson. You
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
need an explanation for why they've changed the carbs this week. You don't need like a science PubMed link to why that reason works with this scientific proven fact. You just need to get the result, right? So if we can get the whole industry to have that base level of understanding, the coach's job is this much, but the result is this much. So it's like what you see at the Olympia level. That's kind of where we need to be, but at the entry level, we need to create that standard here.
Yeah.
So that's where I think, you know, that's the issue with the industry. Long story short, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good, very detailed, and it gives us insight of exactly what you're working on and planning to do for the industry in Australia. And I think, you know, it's super important that we provide knowledge to the clients and everyone that we work with, because that's all we can do as coaches. And if you create you know, education around obviously teaching them things that will help them digest information online, it'll be great. Because, you know, nowadays you probably see like 10-second videos on my 3 best bicep exercises and 3 seconds on how to lose body fat, and then people like, should I be doing this? And you'll be like seriously, like, why are you asking me this question?
Yeah, it's just moved away from, like, there's that fine line between fitness and bodybuilding. You know, it's like obviously grouped into the same basket, but it's definitely moved away from the whole point. And even with like the type of content that sometimes I'll post something, or I'll go to post something, and you still doubt whether it's actually going to make a difference to someone's understanding. You know, it's like, is this even worth doing? You know, like it's really, that's the sort of stuff that obviously social media has helped, because we have more reach. You know, you can help more people, or the information is more easily accessible, but it's also created that sort of, I guess, unrealistic expectation and issue with quality control that new people coming into the industry have this crazy sort of misconception of. So that for me is probably the biggest issue. I mean, it doesn't matter for me, because like I've already gone through all that pain.
Yeah.
So for me to select the next coach that I work with as an athlete, it's easy. You know, I know what I'm looking for. But how do we create that standard, so that people don't have to make all those mistakes first?
Love that, man. No, thank you for that. And so the next question we have for you is, what are some mistakes that people may be doing wrong when they are competing?
Yeah, another good question, bro. Yeah, how long do you have on this podcast?
Oh, wait, how long do you have? Actually, I should ask you that.
No, I'm good. I'm
I'm
just
good to
like,
keep.
I'm like a broken record sometimes, man. Like,
Oh
yeah,
no, then we keep going till you we are done.
okay.
All right. So there's no time limit. There's no time limit.
Yeah, I think it's the same sort of thing. I mean, it comes down to expectations. It comes down to education. I think the best athletes that I've ever worked with are the ones that do their own research. They're involved in, listening to podcasts and being involved in conversations with people who have experience. Like they're not just being a passenger.
Yeah.
Um, you know, to a certain extent, those clients are easy because it's, you don't really have much work to do because they're just like, what do I do? Like, I have no idea. It's easy. Like you just tell me what to do. Like, I'm sure like that's a type of client that some coaches want to work with. But when you're talking about winning bodybuilding shows, being a passenger doesn't work. You have to be a proactive student, even though you're paying a coach, right? You can't just expect everything to come from your coach. It's not why you have a coach. A coach isn't an educator. So I think a big mistake is expecting your coach to, like keep you informed. If you have specific questions, ask the questions, and they should be able to answer the questions, hopefully. But I think that, the biggest mistake is just expecting it all to just be handed to you because you're paying this amount each week. Certainly, I don't know if you've experienced that as a coach, but like that's something that I definitely, it's probably a pet peeve because, it's like it puts a lot of pressure on that relationship to help them understand something when the actual point of that relationship is to achieve a result. So if you don't understand that concept, we have to then go and spend our time explaining and understanding that concept. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
it takes away from the point of what our interaction is meant to be focused on, which is getting you from point A to point B. So definitely a massive mistake. I think as a coach too, like I've made a mistake where I'm too much of an educator and not enough of a coach. That's something I've definitely made the mistake of in the past. And you just have to have clear boundaries, and you have to make sure that you're, I suppose focused on, like, if someone comes at you with this massive emotional question with like all these different moving parts, you have to be able to break that down and address it, like with specific, no, like rational responses with no emotion, because you're a coach, not because you're a psychologist or an educator. You know what I mean? So it's like it kind of goes both ways. But then also underestimating the job, especially with beginners, or even people who are experienced athletes, and they're sort of like, for me personally, after doing so many shows, if I look back at that period of time where I did all those shows, I coached myself through that, I'd say, don't do that show, don't do that show. Let's have a longer off season, do this show. Like, understanding the amount of time that it actually takes to improve properly and to suit the criteria, I think that's very misunderstood. Like, it is a long haul.
It's a long
And
road.
and I think misinterpreting the resources required, because if you think about, okay, coaching is X amount per week and I'm just starting, I'm going to have a couple of years worth of coaching funds, like it's a couple of years. Like if I do it myself, fine. But if I'm going to have a coach for this period of time and I expect to get on stage and win shows, I need to understand the cost required in that. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money in, let's talk about, like, bikini. It's like heels, makeup, tans, coaching, posing coaching, like thousands of dollars. Like, I've had clients spend over 10 grand on shows, WFF more expensive. Like we did a podcast on this, a webinar on the differences between the prices of federations. And I've seen girls spend 15 grand on WFF shows,
Oh my goodness.
so
Because they get a gown and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I think that's a massive misconception, is that it's something you can kind of do on the side if you're a uni student, and I think a lot of people don't give it enough credit, and it's just sort of like, oh, I can just give it a crack and sort of like make it work somehow, maybe find a cheap coach or something and do it cheap, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's the wrong experience. Obviously, like when you were talking about the industry before, like it's changed now because there's a lot more at stake, I feel. The in the industry, like if you did a show back before Instagram and Facebook was a thing, no one saw you fail.
Yeah.
You would get on stage and no one would see that you sucked. Like it wouldn't be broadcasted everywhere. Whereas now, if you do your first show, your family's there, the whole of your following sees that you lost and you looked shit. So there's far more at stake, especially for beginners, but even more so for like the higher level athletes, because it's the minute you come off stage, you got a photo in your hand of how you looked. So there's a lot at stake. If you're committed and you're passionate about it, that's where the financial commitment comes in, because it is something that it matters to you, and there's more at stake if you don't do well. So yeah, I think that misinterpreting all of those little things at the start is a massive mistake. And then probably just to finish that, I'd say like treating the reverse phase with enough respect.
Oh gosh,
That's
the reverses. Don't even get us started with that. That's a whole that'll take a whole podcast, honestly.
that's probably my number one pet peeve, I'd say, is just when, like obviously we've all been there, like you might have a shit result, or you might even win a show, and your whole mentality changes. Like it's a very anticlimactic experience. Like you come off stage and you're like, even when I've won shows, I've just been like, I thought I'd feel better than this. Like it's sort of a very anticlimactic, like you win and you're like, yeah, and then that's it. It's not, it doesn't sort of like, it doesn't really like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's that sort of psychological change from being so focused to then dropping the ball and not respecting that reverse phase because you've suddenly lost interest, or your psychology has changed, or like whatever that issue is, the moment you come off stage, and not committing to that 6 weeks or 8 weeks post show, is where a lot of people actually lose their careers. They ruin their bodies, and they never go back because of that 6 weeks. I see it all the time. I see like that is probably the most common thing. People who could easily just keep going and improve never come back because of that phase.
And I think, it's also like, as a coach, we have to prepare them. But even as much as preparation as you can tell them at the very beginning, they're just, when it comes around to it and they spend maybe, let's say 20 minutes on stage, or even less than that sometimes, and that's it. The hours, the hundreds of hours they put into prep, like, training, cardio, food prep, eating your meals, planning all this just for 10 minutes on stage. And then you're just like, oh, is that it? Okay, cool. What now?
Yeah. That's sort of what I mean when I say like it has to align. Like your why has to continue past that stage time. Like you have to almost be like as unfazed by winning as you are by losing or coming second.
Yeah.
It has to be equally as like, shouldn't change your mood at all. Like it should just be like, yep, I came to win, I won. Thank you, next. Or, yep, I came to see how I would do, and that's how I did. Or, yep, I didn't put the effort in, that's what I deserve. Like it should literally be that, like that's the emotion, the extent of it, because then you come off, it's like any other day, you just plan the next day and you get on with it. That's what 1%ers do. That's where you see just exceptional results, because it's irrelevant what happens on that day. It is what it is, because it's not up to you. It's not you, like you have no control over that day. So yeah, and I think if you respect the reverse phase with that psychology in mind, that's what separates pro athletes with people who, I call them tourists, because they don't stay around.
Weekend warriors.
Weekend
warriors. And I think, it's like a ladder of success, right? It's like they take that first step. They only have one step, whereas the very successful people they know that's just their first step. They know they're going to have way more after that. So no matter the placing, they're going to be like, I'm going to improve and I'm going to bring back a better package. So nothing changes. Whereas some people might just only have just one step in their ladder. And they're like, that's it. I'm done.
And that's actually a good point, because I think that is a big part. I think that people make a mistake about is not having clear expectations of that show. You know, if you're coming into this show with the expectation to just do that and never do it again, then like just have fun, like rock it on stage, you know, laugh, jump around, whatever. That's your, you know, if you win, you win, who cares? Like that's your expectation. Whereas if you're expecting to win, then your whole approach to this needs to reciprocate that thought, you know. And then if you don't win, you're immediately doing what you need to do to win immediately. Like the minute you don't win, like not 20 weeks later, you don't go back to normal life and then go, oh, I didn't win, but I'll win next show. You immediately make the action to win the next show because you've lost, you didn't win this one. So it's like this second you didn't win, now I'm doing what I need to do to win. It's like immediate.
Yeah, straight away. Love that, man. Thank you for that. And so we're gonna finish up with two more questions. These are listener questions. So one listener did ask tips for regaining period post comp.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that I have a personal passion about female competing or bodybuilding, because it's something that I think as a male bodybuilder, when I was competing as a male, I never really thought much about it, right? Like obviously I still am a male, so I don't know why I said that. But like you never really think about the opposite gender because you're going through this process. And I think as I started to, you know, do more research and work with more females, I actually enjoy that more because it's so complicated. It's so complex. The female body is like actually ridiculous, like how it functions, what it does on a daily basis. You know, it's so much more complicated and you know, interesting than a male body. Like our bodies are just boring, bro. You know, like we don't really much. So that alone, because it adds a complexity to bodybuilding, it's a challenge. You know, it's more difficult than male bodybuilding, in my opinion.
100%.
So because of that, it draws my attention. I always sort of like go towards things that are more difficult.
Yeah.
And like I think if that's something that's changing about the industry, is like these preconceived ideas about what will happen to a female in a bodybuilding prep, that's changing. And I feel like the more experience I get, the more quality athletes I work with, the less impact that actually has on the menstrual cycle. So to answer your question, the best way to get your menstrual cycle back is to not lose it.
Yeah.
So obviously sometimes that's not possible because of genetic reasons or because of stress quota, like I was talking about that stress quota before. It gets to a certain position in body, like in the prep, when your body fat gets below a certain homeostasis level, and your female reproductive, your reproductive system shuts down purely from a survival. It's a survival mechanism. So we can't avoid that, but we can limit the period of time, especially for, you know, categories like bikini. Like you're not getting to sort of 3% body fat. So we don't have to be under that level of body fat for very long. We can just reduce that window. So it's like get close to it, maintain a level of health, duck under it for the show, and come back out again really quick. Like it's just like hold that, get in, get out. So you might skip 1 or 2 cycles, but then because you've only skipped 1 or 2 cycles, you can regain it quicker than if you've missed 8. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's comes down to the preparation leading up to that point where you duck in and then duck out again. If you're really pushing it to get ready for that show, you don't have the opportunity to hold health and be in control of that cycle. You're just wrecked from the start. You've just come in and you crash and everything's out of the whack and everything. So it's preparation to get yourself close to that limit. And you should understand that prior to a prep. Like ideally, you know what limit that is, where you start to lose it. You can do that with blood tests. You can do that with, you know, just like biofeedback, taking your temperature, your blood sugar, all that stuff. And you can find that point at which your body is in survival mode and it's no longer going to be in a state of reproductive health. So if you can limit that amount of time that you're in that condition where you lose your period, then regaining it post show is it's quite simple. It's just a matter of getting condition back above that again. So the first step for that is getting the calories back to maintenance at least, and not caring about, you know, we want to be this condition 6 weeks. Look how conditioned I am 6 week post show. Like, you're a female, okay? You're a female. You want to get back to reproductive health immediately, as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Not by binge eating, but by getting your body fat there. And you don't get that by keeping yourself in a deficit. So it's get the food back up as high as possible within reason, so that you're not gaining heaps of weight. Yeah. And then, start with the you need healthy fats in diet. At least 50 grams is where you kind of like get it above, depending on the size of the girl as well. Like, sometimes it could be a little bit less, but usually at least 50 grams. And then blood testing, making sure that you're resting. Like I was talking about before, if you've lost it and you're very lean, you should at least rest for 2 to 3 weeks. No training, nothing. Maintenance calories. Because if you think about the reason why you've lost it in the first place, your body is in a state of survival. So if you're in a state of survival, you want to do things that tell your body you're not in a state of survival anymore.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be moving a lot. You don't want to be doing hours of steps. You don't want to be training every day. You don't want to be staying up late and getting not much sleep because you're out partying or something, or you know what I mean? Like, you want to put yourself in a position where your body goes, I'm no longer trying to survive. I'm actually fine. Sometimes if you do that right, like, I had a client recently, I don't know if you know Sam Wicks, but she did a full prep. We didn't lose a period at all. And she, her body showed no signs that it had been through a prep at all, like nothing.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So she didn't lose menstrual cycle at all. She had it the whole way through, and she looked fantastic. Like, she was the most shredded she's ever been. Like, even though it was WFF, it wasn't the IFBB conditioning. She was still leaner than she was at the last IFBB show she did. So she improved the condition. And we looked at her blood work post-show. For 2 weeks post-show, her blood work was healthier. The markers were healthier than they were 8 weeks out. So she actually got healthy.
Yeah.
And that to me is exciting, because I'm like, all of these sort of like myths and sort of like rules that people place on females and the physiology, complete bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And I've seen it happen, man. So like, that's something I'm really passionate about, because you hear of some horror stories, like women, like, losing their periods for years and being infertile, and it's not just that. It's not just about reproduction. It goes so much deeper. It goes to psychology. It goes to resilience. It goes to recovery. It goes to your ability to handle stressful situations. This is a survival response. And if your body's still in a state of fight or flight, and your brain and your psychology is based around the fact that you're fighting off something and you're surviving something, you can't possibly be relaxed and enjoy your life. So it doesn't stop at fertility or reproduction. It goes so much deeper than that. And I think that if we can sort of promote that and get women to understand that it's actually, if you do things correctly and you balance your hormones and you understand the criteria and what's involved, and you do spend the right amount of time preparing correctly, you actually can get healthier from it. So like, that's pretty cool to me, is to completely turn that around, and have people coming out the back end of shows in a better position, not just hormonally, but psychologically, and they're stronger, healthier, happier women. Like, how good's that?
Love that, man. That's such a great answer. Very detailed answer as well. You really talk about, how you go into the show, you really find that spot where it's going to just dip for a time period. And your goal is purely just to recover post-comp and to get that back, because it just has, like, as you said, a lot of emotional, psychological changes that can happen during prep. And to recover from that, you just got to recover. Like, it's so important. If you want to go back into a good building phase, you got to be functioning 100% in your hormones as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your brain, or I guess where the hormones are created, it has no idea that you're not in a famine.
Yeah.
It doesn't know that you're bodybuilding. It doesn't know that
it don't give a shit.
it thinks that you are actually in a state where you could possibly die.
Yeah.
So it's shutting down everything that it doesn't need. And that includes reproductive. Like, why would you try and reproduce if you could possibly die in 3 months?
Yeah.
Like it's if you look at it like that and you understand that this is what the body's going through, it makes the whole thing so simple, because you have to reduce. And if you're like one of these people that, you work long hours and you're super stressed and you've got a family of 7 and you travel for work and you expect to maintain your menstrual cycle for the whole of prep, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Your stress quota has been blown before you started the prep, especially as a woman, as a woman. Like modern day, modern day life is you're already starting with a handicap as a woman. You're already fucked. Pardon, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but
Yeah, no, go ahead. No, swearing's all allowed.
yeah, you're already starting with a massive handicap as a woman in modern life. So we have to give that the respect. This starts with resting when you have your period. Like, I can go into depth about female, all that stuff, but there's so little respect given to that requirement. Like, some women can achieve it and it not be a problem, but 90% of women can't. And so if we understand how all of that works and apply that with like strict rules, then we're going to start to see that whole sort of concept of like, don't do that, you'll lose your period. Like, it's just not going to be a conversation anymore. It's just going to be like men. Like, we don't think about that because we have rules for our hormones. So that's where we need to be with it for sure.
Love that, man. Thank you again. And so we got a final question. So biggest mistakes bikini competitors or coaches make?
Ooh, I would
Obviously,
say,
the last question was pretty similar, I guess,
yeah,
because it does talk about period. Yeah. So
yeah, but I mean, I think for bikini in itself, like the last one was like just for females, right? Like in
yeah.
general. Yeah,
Tips for getting a period post comp. So yeah, generally females.
like,
Yeah.
I suppose for bikini only, like, we could talk about the fact that like the criteria is always misinterpreted. I think that generally the level of athlete is improving. And our ability to gain muscle and get in condition is improving. And so like coaches, I think worldwide, are always pushing their athletes to get leaner, leaner, bigger, straight. And I think that like everyone's talking about this, like, I don't know if you saw that on Instagram recently, like about the bikini criteria. Tyler posted it.
I didn't fully watch it, but I did see it come up. Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, look, the criteria's changed. I'm like, no, this has been like this since like 1980. Like, I don't know. This is the criteria of bikini. Like, this has not changed. What's changed is our ability to get females in condition has improved. Like, we know how to get women lean. So if we know how to get women lean, then we're going to want to get them lean. Like, we just, like, I have athletes like now, I'm like, what would they look like if we were just to get them a little bit more? How deep would that separation look? It's hard to hold them back. It is hard. So I think understanding the criteria fully, like really understanding the criteria, not just from a coach perspective, but like, if you're a competitor, because then when you get judging feedback, you don't blame your coach, or you don't blame the judges, or you don't blame someone else. You look at it and go, I need to improve this. And that's, you take ownership. So I think understanding criteria is the biggest mistake. And then, second to that, I'd say probably enhancing too soon or enhancing at all. Like we just spoke about, with hormone balancing and understanding like the importance of the menstrual cycle, not just from a fertility perspective, but just its function in, female recovery from training, especially. If you've ever seen a woman with low progesterone, they look like a balloon.
Yeah.
So, like, those hormones are necessary for getting lean. You need estrogen to get lean. You need progesterone to get lean. Like, you need all of these hormones. You need testosterone to recover. Like, you don't need to just suddenly throw, 40 times the natural limit of testosterone at a woman who wants to just get a little bit bigger. It's not needed. Like, I think understanding what hormones are and what they do and what their function is in recovery and in muscle building for a female, because you don't just grow from testosterone. You know,
Yeah.
it's not the only hormone that facilitates muscle growth. So if you're just throwing hormones at a girl hoping that she's going to get bigger as a result, you're not addressing the actual issues, which is training performance, nutrition, recovery, menstrual health, like making sure all this makes sense. And then to finalize that, I'd say like overdoing the training volume. Like I've seen programs of girls doing like 40 sets for glutes, where it's just like, you're a 50-kilo girl. Like you just don't need to do that much volume for glutes. And then, you're expecting, like we said before, you're expecting your body to recover from that and be ready for the next 40 sets in 2 days time. So understanding the criteria, using the knowledge we have about female anatomy to create a program that actually, it's going to take you a little longer, maybe, it might take you a little bit longer, but the results are going to be sustainable, and you're going to enjoy the process, and you're going to be sane-minded, and you're going to be in control of all of it, and you're going to enjoy it and be able to continue doing it. So I think for bikini especially, I mean, it's different once you get into like wellness and figure and obviously just for IPB, but these categories where it's sort of like, a lot more development is required. There's sort of risks you need to take, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, you'll be a figure competitor naturally. Like maybe there's a few
genetic freak.
Yeah, sure. But we all assume that risk. But I think for bikini, because of the level of development that it actually does satisfy the criteria, enhancing does come into it, because sometimes it can help us balance the body. Sometimes like even just HRT to a certain extent, especially in old women. I've got a few older clients who need HRT, which is not testosterone, it's progesterone and estrogen. So that's the hormones they need, and that they're growing and they're getting lean from that sort of stuff. But, I think understanding that, that level of development in those criterias you don't just throw testosterone at the issue and hope that it's a solution. And when we talk about wellness and figure and these categories where more development is required, it's just a time thing. Like usually these women, these competitors who are doing well in these classes they're over 30.
Yeah. You've been training for like 10, 15 years. Yeah.
I'm yet to see a Olympia competitor in wellness or figure a little bit different, but in wellness, especially with that level of development in the lower body physique as well, who's like younger than 30, like who has that full development. Maybe they're almost there, but they're not quite there yet. But when they're truly that category, it's older. They're a lot older. Same with men. I mean, it's the same thing. So why are we rushing this for young women? Why is that a thing? So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
No, that was a really great answer, really detailed as well. Once again, another good answer. And hopefully the listener will take it away. I think it does. It talks a lot about like how bikini competitors, some coaches might put this mindset into their brain to like, PEDs, training, nutrition, where it should be nutrition, training, lifestyle. And then maybe we'll chuck a little bit on top if your bloods are good,
Yeah. And I think, like I said, man, like I'm not someone who's anti-PEDs. Like, like I'm a bodybuilder, bro. Like I'll take I'll take any opportunity to enhance what we're doing, but it has to make sense. Like it has to really, if we can do it without it, then we'll do it. If we need it, we need it. Like it's one of those situations where you just have to make it. You don't just do it because it's what you do, like especially for women.
Yeah, you can't play around with it. It's way more dangerous. Not like guys, just like bro science. Oh yeah, my mate told me to use this. I'll just jump on that. Like for females, way different ball game. You do not mess around with it because
Well, it's like you look at the dominant hormone in a male. It's usually most of the time it's testosterone. You'd hope so. In women, it's still like everyone thinks about women as having low testosterone. It's actually still higher than the estrogen. It's just the ratios that are different. Yeah. So, like a woman still has a certain amount of testosterone that is, even a natural woman has enough testosterone to build muscle.
Yeah.
It's the other hormones that fluctuate around that may make that difficult. So enhancing testosterone doesn't guarantee that you're suddenly now more anabolic as a woman. Like it doesn't guarantee that at all.
Great answer. So thank you, Tim, once again, for jumping on this podcast. Where can the listeners find you?
Oh, just on Tim_1PCNTRS, so 1%ers on Instagram. That's pretty much where I always hang out. I'm pretty much just either at my table at a cafe somewhere or at my desk.
Yeah, so I'm sure, like, if you have any more questions that you'd like to ask him, make sure to go check out his page and also his coaching page. I think it's just 1%ers or Team 1%ers. Yeah.
1%ers. It's just the same as what's in the last part of my handle, but just on its own. But we also have a community page. It's a circle community. It's a separate website, and you can join that for free. There's a forum question answer section in there. We post a whole bunch of like free resources and videos. Like there is a video in there about menstrual cycle health and things like that. So you can join that for free. You don't have to be a client to get involved. In fact, it's probably recommended that you're not a client first. Get involved first. Get involved first, and then when you know that it's the right thing for you, then that's the perfect time to reach out for coaching rather than just jumping at it kind of thing. Get involved, understand what's required and what we're about as a team, and just get involved.
Once again, thank you so much, Tim. If you guys found value from this podcast, please share it with your friends and your families. And once again, if you do have any questions for Tim or myself, please ask us, and I'm sure that we will do another podcast in the future. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Tim, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, bro. Cheers, guys. Yes.